starting the podcast.
We're just going and another thing.
And then another thing. And then we do a high five, because we always do that. And then we go, ha 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 ha. Hey everyone, welcome to Misfits on Vinyl. My name is Spencer Streichert. I am one of your hosts. Today, unfortunately, Aaron Walsh is not here. Aaron is actually in Ottawa. It turns out he got his email invite to the trucker convoy a little late. He's showing up right now. I don't know how that's going to go, but we will insert photos of Aaron at the Capitol. I think that it's going to be interesting to see how he does a one-man revolution. No, I'm just kidding. He booked an HBO show. Aaron's an actor as well.
Oh, congratulations, Aaron.
Yeah, so Aaron's actually right now currently filming for the Jon Snow series.
Did they say were they the last thing he said to you was don't tell anybody about this?
He literally said that, and I was like, I'm telling everyone about this. I'm telling our fan in Brussels. We have a fan in Brussels.
Hi!
All right, so
cool.
I guess I should probably introduce you. So joining me today as my co-host, first guest on the podcast.
Whoa.
Which is dope. Comedian, really good friend of mine, Brittany Lyseng.
Hi, guys. I'm just in your living room. I'm always here. I'm here a bunch.
we honestly hang out in my living room a fuck ton.
A lot. It's usually panicked calls for self tapes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Spencer. Then I haul ass down here. I'm happy to be on. Thanks for having me.
No, I'm super happy to have you on. Okay, one thing that we always do on the podcast is because we are officially unofficially sponsored by the award-winning brewery Cabin Brewing. Because Sam the Tech Man is the brewist.
Whoa.
Over at Cabin.
Hold on.
Today we have Zen Garden, which was the gold medal winning patio beer. Did I get that right?
Nailed it.
I fucking nailed it.
Dude.
So I'm gonna crack this. It's a jasmine rice lager, which sounds fucking delicious. But you're off the sauce for a little bit.
I'm off the sauce.
Yeah.
The sauce became problematic in my life and problematic in other people's lives. So I've taken a little break. But let me know how it tastes, because this is something that I would drink and really enjoy. And it's a rice lager.
You know what I really love about this is that I feel like you and I have very similar tastes in beer, so I get to describe in great detail how good this is.
Yeah.
And you just have to watch me drink.
And I just have to look at it. Because I feel like the universe keeps testing me. They're just like, hey, what about this? How about now?
How about now? What I think is really funny, so a couple of weeks ago, I guess, I mentioned this on the podcast, but a couple of weeks ago, Brittany and I went to Cranbrook, and I panicked because I saw Brittany having a beer at one point.
Oh, my nonnies.
And it was a non-alcoholic beer, but I didn't know that. And so I was like, oh no, am I the bad influence that made Brittany start drinking again? Because I fucking will pound like 4 beers after a show. I'm just like, oh, whatever.
I also didn't stop drinking. I was joking. I just stopped drinking because I was just, I'm a comedian, so I'm in a bar every night.
Yeah.
And I was getting to the point where I was walking. When people know your order for food or for booze, you're there too much.
Yeah.
So people were walking, they just give me my thing. So I was like, maybe if I take a little break, have a little reset. So I'm always trying to find the moment when I'm going to have my first beer I'm like, but I never know when it is. Could be now.
Oh my God.
Drink the whole thing smashed on my face.
If you fucking came back strong on the pod, that would be the way to do it. I would love that so goddamn much.
Oh my God.
It's so funny though, because you mentioned that so I run the show at Tea House every week, and every week I walk in and they give me a Far Heffy because it's been my beer for a year.
Yeah.
What is terrible about that is that I can't say no to it because it is a very crushable beer. Yeah. It's so easy to fucking just down those babies. But I asked them, I was like, so what's a different beer that I can try? And they were like, well, you'll need to find one because we're actually going to change this. And I was like,
oh no.
I was like, you know what? That's probably a good thing. Because I think that'll
discourage you because you're not looking for. I know it's like my beer is always, or forever was, I'll always drink, I love a good microbrew. Mm-hmm. Love tasting different things people are making. But my just go-to everyday beer was Keith's.
Oh, yep.
And then I'd order a side of clam because I'm a 962-year-old man. Just drink it. And anytime I'm in like a...
You need to get your calcium with your beer.
The only time somebody doesn't second guess that order is in a Legion.
Yeah.
In like a restaurant, they're like, gross.
Did you hear that Legions are dying?
I hope not, because I just wrote a joke about it. I can't have any more out-of-date material. I will no longer be hireable.
Oh, fuck. Okay, so I think it's funny. Okay, first off, I have to say, this is very tasty, Sam. Congratulations.
Good job, Sam.
It's very smooth. This is deceptively smooth. I could see this fucking me up on a patio.
Is it, you drinking out of that record cup?
This is the official cup of the Misfits on Vinyl
is
podcast.
Stunting my ability to be genuine. I can't take my eyes.
Because I have to drink out of a corner.
Yeah,
that's a fucking square top. Like,
I also love that, like, just drinking out of the can would have been more beneficial to the sponsor.
Yeah, 100%.
But you were like...
But we got One Sugar Records. Keep it brewing. Cool brew featuring tea and coffee.
Hell yeah.
Okay, so one thing I want to bring up. Sure. We got another date out of town together. Woo! High five from a distance because I don't want to move forward.
Me either.
But we're going to be in Lethbridge the 20th and 21st of January.
Oh, yeah.
I believe it is.
Yep.
I think we got, we got 3 shows, and then we got an extra one, which I'm super excited about.
Yep.
Which, we're going to be hush-hush about it, but you'll know about it later.
You'll find out.
You'll find out.
But if you're in Lethbridge.
If you're in Lethbridge, come on out.
In 3 months.
We do have a Lethbridge listener, so
do we?
I think it might be Forrest.
It might be just our friend who hired us.
Yeah. It might literally just be the comedy club owner that is listening to us.
Well, if
Lethbridge.
it is you, I love you, and thank you.
Yeah.
And if it isn't you, come to our show.
Come to our show, because honestly, it's gonna be a lot of fun, and we work really well. Our acts complement each other.
Yes,
I would say that. I say things that are far too dark, and then Brittany lightens things up.
I actually did a show last night, and I have like some new darker stuff I've written, and it was kind of like it would have tripled down on like darkness. And I'd say like I would go into these new jokes that I've written, and the audience was like, no more. And I was like, oh, okay, well, fine, because the 2 acts before me had like told darker jokes.
Oh no!
So then I was like, I guess I'll just have to be pleasant.
My favorite thing last night, I was doing a show with 12 people in the audience.
Yeah.
And I am doing this material right now about being poor and growing up poor. And I asked who grew up poor, and nobody wanted to talk about it. And then it turns out everybody there did not grow up poor. So when I got to the end where I'm just shitting on rich kids, they fucking hated me.
They're like, oh, nothing more. Where was the show? Was it at? Oh, I know where it was.
Yeah, Confluence Distilling.
Yeah, that's where you find all the poor people, in a gin distillery.
Yeah, in a gin distillery in a very inconvenient location to get to by public transit.
Unless the distilling happens in a bathtub, then it's not going to be your audience.
Right next to Cabin Brewing.
Right next to Cabin Brewing. Whoa.
Which, as we've mentioned, the official, unofficial sponsor of the podcast.
Hell yeah.
Okay,
let's do it.
Let's get into the album. So, on Misfits on Vinyl, every week we discuss one of our favorite albums, or one of the biggest albums, or an underrated album. And this week we have a very special one because it's our first Canadian artist.
Oh.
First of all, which I'm super excited about. And it's one of Brittany's favorite albums. And since I started listening to it in prep, it has become one of my favorite albums.
So good.
The album that we are reviewing is Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill.
Whoa.
Woo. Round of applause. I'm going to set that there. There we go. Okay, so this is her 3rd album, but it's considered by many to be her debut because it's where she found her sound.
Yeah, before, like, I don't know if this is too early to dive into it, but before her stuff was pretty like generic pop. Mm-hmm. Like it was really like, it was like the industry was like, hey, this girl can sing. This is what we want her to sing.
We want really fluffy hair. We want neon spandex.
It sounded almost Janet Jackson-y, or like Paula Abdul-ish.
Yeah.
Like it was very like that, like pop, almost with a funk background with like dancing in the street in big jeans.
Oh
like,
God!
I don't quite know what it was.
And the music videos were so cringy. I was watching some of them and I was like, oh, there's like one where she's like got a snake and she's on the ground and she's like singing up and it's in black and white and I'm like, why did anybody approve this?
Do you know what? I've never understood the appeal of a snake. Like in a music video, in your home, in any aspect of your life, and then it's like weirdly sexualized.
Yeah.
And I always just think like, I don't know, it would be so hard to stay hard knowing that you could be murdered at any time. Like it's so like, wouldn't you just be so concerned about that movement of the snake?
Well, I also think this, why is it okay that we sexualize a snake but not a dog?
I mean,
I'd rather fuck a dog than a snake, if I'm being honest with you.
I mean, they're sturdier for sure.
They're sturdier.
I wouldn't even know where to enter a snake.
I wouldn't either. They're cloaca. That's a fucking terrible place to fuck.
Cloaca?
That's their asshole and genitals. It's one hole.
Oh.
Birds and reptiles have a cloaca.
I like how you said that thinking I would know what that like,
what the fuck is that? Oh, Jesus. Oh, God. Siobhan just fucking, this phone's going off. We've had everybody's phone has went off once on the podcast.
Did I turn mine off? I don't know.
I mean, double check, but it's okay if it does.
Oh my God. Faris texted me.
Oh, good. Hi, Faris. Okay, so getting back to the album, though.
Okay.
So this is a post-rock, post-grunge, post-pop alt album. Like, it is kind of the birth of female alt in a way. Because like there was what I mean by that is like in a mainstream way. Like cuz she was the first one to really hit it into that next stratosphere. Cuz before you had Heavens to Betsy, you had Courtney Love, you had
old Pixies.
The Pixies. You had like a few of these bands that were like really fucking good, but they didn't break at the same level as Alanis did.
Well, it was like, I'm starting to like understand, I guess because I've been always a little more alty, like my tastes seem to lie in what maybe everybody doesn't know.
Yeah.
And then I have this like, I always think they're so big. Like my reaction to that was like, well, you don't know the Pixies? And then I was like, okay, but like at that time, like the Pixies pretty underground.
Well, and especially because that was pre-internet. So like this is like the only thing that people know is what's on the radio.
Yeah.
And something that I found out when I was watching the documentary, apparently a lot of radio stations wouldn't play more than one female artist an hour. So they would play No Doubt and then they wouldn't play Alanis. Like they could not fathom putting them back to back. And she actually changed that because she had such a like fuck you sound that it was undeniable.
Do you know what's funny about that is like, so just radio stations in general, just like pop radio stations that you're referring to?
Yeah.
Isn't it funny that for the first time in history, country music was more progressive? Because there's a lot of like female country music artists I can remember in the 90s. But then if I compare the two, you're right.
Yeah.
When I think of the 90s and what they were playing, it was like a lot of like, I mean, even if you like pick up a big Shiny Tunes.
Yeah.
Much music compilation.
The throwbacks. I love that.
Dude, they were like, but I look on those albums and there's not a lot of female artists on there. So maybe just in the genre of sort of alternative or like rock, punk, they avoided female artists, which blows my mind.
It is insane because like if you looked at country at the time, you had Shania Twain, you had Reba McEntire, you had I would say Sheryl Crow falls more into the fucking alt.
Yeah.
But like she got a lot of country radio airplay, which is I mean crazy.
Yeah, weird.
But you look at how many female artists there were at the time that were country singers that were huge compared to the alt or the pop side. And honestly, like pop music in the mid-90s was kind of dead. There was, comparatively, it was like the three big things that you had were you had hip-hop, which was at like an all-time fucking peak. You had, some of the biggest names out there, and they were all getting actual radio play at the time. You had the, grunge scene, which was getting, like, that was, like, right when they're at the tail end, like, right in 95. And then you had these newer country artists that were singing, like, that kind of took that old feel and added, like, they had steel guitars and everything, but it was more like, I think 90s country was the best country.
Me too, because you're talking, like, I mean, some of my favorite artists still Brooks and Dunn. Vince Gill. I love Vince Gill. It was like it almost reflected like some of that older stuff. It was. I mean, Garth Brooks started to be the change of that, I think.
Yeah.
Because he dove more away from like traditional country and it started sounding more rock.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a weird era. So you think about like that point. How I don't know, man. How are they not playing
more female artists?
Yeah.
And so what? Okay, I'm gonna get back to like where we were here.
Okay.
Okay, so it was recorded between March 8th, 1994 and April 95. So there was, 13 months that they're recording this album. But so it was produced and co-written by Glenn Ballard. Oh God, I gotta just get rid of pop-ups. I'm sorry. It was produced and co-written by Glenn Ballard, and his discography is fucking insane. It starts with Thriller, and it's still going today. She went to LA after, like, I'm kind of going ahead here for a second just to explain who he is to her. After MCA Canada dropped her after her second album, she went to LA. She got in touch with him, and over the course of a year and a bit, she would come in. They would have these songwriting sessions. They would write a song every session, but they only had, like, 12 sessions in that year. They had 12 tracks that they wrote for this album, and most of them were one takes. Most of these songs were like, because she had came from this like bubblegum pop thing, and they would want her to like harmonize, and they'd have her like redo takes and redo takes and redo takes. She said she didn't want to have that approach at all, and she wanted to just, if it fucking worked, it worked, and if it didn't, whatever.
Which is very like, I don't know. It's a real punk attitude. Mm-hmm. That's very like, look, it's kind of, I don't know. That's pretty cool. That's like, she's like, fuck it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, I don't want to talk about it or do it or try it again or fit it into a weird box that you need it to be in.
And it didn't. What I think is great is that Glenn Ballard understood that it didn't need to fit into a box, because when they got this album done, when it wasn't even done, because they were only recording demos. And the demos, by the way, I listened to them, and they sound almost exactly like the final track.
Like the studio track.
Like the studio track. They pitched it to every single record label. Nobody wanted this.
Of course.
Every single person that they talked to said, this is too angry, too edgy. Nobody's going to like it that a woman's talking like this, because this is in the 90s, and there's still a fuck ton of like open misogyny in the industry. And so they pitched to everywhere. Nobody wanted them. She went back to Canada. Then she came back down. Her family like helped her pay for like one last fucking trip to make this. She gets a meeting with Maverick Records. There's a newbie there. He listens to Perfect, and he's like, wow, this is beautiful. And then that mid fucking song shift where it gets real like edgy, and you're like, oh, damn, are you a knife girl? Because you got an edge to you. Like, it's just fucking very sudden.
Perfect is such a heart-wrenching track.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, first of all, it's beautiful in sound. So,
gorgeous.
Like, sometimes if you're not listening to lyrics and you're just listening to the sound of the track, I'm often like, you're just driving, you're like, what a pretty song.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh my God, this is so sad.
It's horrendously heartbreaking.
You're like, and then you just know, like, I think more than anything, like, her relatability to certain sad situations. Like, when people say, like, oh, this is too sad, what a ridiculous approach to music, because like the people want to feel sad. People want to feel sad. People like knowing that people think they go, oh, you're also sad, you're also bummed out. Like, these little moments of like, that's a big heavy track, but like a lot of people have felt that way. Oh yeah. And she was like, how about this? How about this? And it's so funny too, because she co-wrote all of these songs with Glenn Ballard, but he even said she wrote the majority of these. Like, the lyrics were like all her. Well, tonally,
it makes
throughout
sense.
the whole album, you can tell that these are her thoughts because it's almost conversational. Like every song is like she's telling you a thing that only she could have thought. Like it's like when somebody writes a joke, that's the only way I can think of it.
Yeah,
it's like if you write a joke only you could tell. Good luck stealing it.
Oh yeah,
because it's like, well, that's how would you even? You don't even talk like that or think like that.
No.
So it's like when you hear every song, you hear like the anger, the sadness, the whatever, and there are a lot of them are conversational. Like there's something so cool about the way she does stuff because she's just sort of talking to you.
Yeah,
and you're like, whoa, like this is different than anything I've ever heard.
Literally, the first track on the album.
Yeah,
it starts out with, "Do I stress you out? My sweater's on backwards and inside out." And you say, "How appropriate." That actually happened to her because she walked in to record with Glenn one day.
Yeah.
And she was a fucking physical mess. And he was very confused. And she went,
out.
"Fuck it. This is literally a track." Like, that's so funny. Like, and it is that, like, taking that experience that only you have that nobody else can take.
Well, I'm sort of now thinking, like, is that's very Canadian, like, that way of speaking, that very, like, dry, honest, like, it's never in your face, but it's just like, well, here's because I'm thinking of, like, the way some Tragically Hip songs.
Yeah.
And the lyrically in the Tragically Hip songs, like, Gord Downey says things you would only say in conversation because they don't make really any sense to put in a song.
Yeah.
So, like, when, "Do I stress you out?"
Yeah.
Like is something you would in conversation, like that's a weird thing because she's asking you a question, like she's starting a song
by asking a question. And not only just starting a song, starting an album.
Yeah.
Which is fucking, like, that's a ballsy move.
And it, again, like, what an intro. What a way to, like, as I pulled up to the house, Spencer heard me just like rocking the thing.
Yeah.
And I was actually like on the way. I didn't even I've listened to the album a million times.
Yeah.
I listened to the whole thing this morning again. But on the way here, I was like, there's something so big and bold about how she starts that album.
Yeah.
That makes you feel like she's like, I have your ear.
Yeah.
I'm telling you what this is going to sound like and feel like. And like, don't like, but in a way, like it cradles you almost. Like you're like, oh, she's got this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Like,
and it also feels like it doesn't feel like I find a lot of times when artists do that, it feels too aggressive, and it's a very aggressive album, but it doesn't feel too aggressive. You feel like you're safe while listening to this. You feel like you're on a journey that you are protected in. It kind of goes back to, excuse me. Whoa, that was bad. There was the writer of Fight Club. He had a quote that I read where it said, "Take your audience to where they would never comfortably go. Take yourself to where you would never go." And take yourself to where you would never comfortably go. Take your audience to where they would never go. And that's what this album kind of feels like.
Yeah. Well, and she's like, right off the hop, like it's a big rock sound.
Yeah.
Like it's a different sound.
Yeah.
Like it's not something you've heard before.
And it's great because it's not any of the three genres that this falls into.
Not really. It's not punk.
It's not punk. It's not grunge. It's not pop. It's
closer to rock, but it's pretty alty because even her sound, like, you know, you almost want to call it like the Alanis accent. Like whatever she's doing that, I don't know if it's natural to her or whatever, is that, or if sometimes artists make up a sound.
Yeah.
They go like, this is the sound I make.
And it honestly, if it works, it's fucking amazing.
Well, now you hear that sound and like, you go like, oh, this is Alanis. Like, that's another thing. There is nothing unmistakable about her.
No.
Like, you listen to her sound, her look, everything, you go, this is Alanis.
Yeah.
You like, there's not a lot of artists you can say that about.
No, but I think that there's more Canadian artists that you can say that about than anywhere else in the world.
I would agree. I would go as far as even to say Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as you hear a Bieber track, you go, oh, this is Bieber.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Celine Dion.
Celine Dion, Rush, Tragically Hip.
Yeah.
Neil Young, like Joni Mitchell, you Leonard Cohen. You hear like just a little hint of something, and you're like, I know exactly what this is. Nickelback, again, another one. It's
a real story.
Yeah,
it's honest. Maybe it's a little more sincere. It's not like craving that fandom or that star.
And I think that's 100% what it is too, because I think that most of these artists were not exactly craving that, because even Alanis, when I was watching the documentary about her, it didn't seem like fame was her endgame with this at all. She just wanted to create.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to mention back to Maverick. So Maverick was a record label that was started by Madonna. So this newbie listens to this song Perfect, and he goes, "This is amazing." He brings them in. They were in a songwriting session when he called. They come in. He's like, "Yeah, we want to sign you." Madonna is like on board 100%. The actual like brick and mortar establishment of Maverick, though, was a piece of shit. Like, Madonna walked into a room one day, turned on a light, and something fell off the wall, and she went, "Fucking piece of shit." Like, it was a horrible building. So, kind of works perfectly for the fucking tone of the album and what she's going for. Like, this sounds like just such beautiful poetry coming together.
It's dirty a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's dirty sounding. Like, you're like, it's not... Yeah.
It is a jagged little pill.
It is a jagged little pill.
And what's crazy is, like, so when they started recording the album, recording artists included Dave Navarro of Jane's Addiction.
Wow.
And Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Okay.
Which is insane that they agreed to do this. But then when you look at who was touring with her, so first off, she gets all of these songs made. Her album's going to come out. They send a single to K-Rock. K-Rock hears You Oughta Know. And literally within 10 minutes, they put it on the air. They scrapped their whole fucking plan, which, as somebody who's worked in radio before, I know that's a pain in the ass, so there's no goddamn way. Like, it has to be amazing for that to happen.
That's somebody with their ear to the ground, though, too.
Yeah.
That's like hearing something and being like, this now. Let's be the first.
Let's be the first. Let's break this.
Which is like, it doesn't, I mean, not to be traumatic, but this, like, we're going to change the way people hear music.
Yeah.
Because that's what that song did.
It did.
It changed our ears. It changed our brains.
And how she was able to, first of all, people were very aggressive about the fact that she was talking openly about, sexuality as well in the 90s.
And sort of angrily.
She was fucking owning it. And that was unheard of, especially for a female artist. So the fact that she starts it off by being like, "I gave you fucking head in a movie theater." Yeah. Do you think that your girlfriend's going to do that? Like, fuck me. That's insane.
But again, like, I think there's something to the idea that sort of the sadness and the anger from that is like you can identify with, because you're like, people want to pretend to be not angry, and they want to pretend to be happy all the time, whatever the fuck that is, which is crazy, because that's how, like, that's how people write manifestos.
Yeah, that literally is.
No. But there's like the thing of like, there is no crazier version of yourself than when you're in love with somebody, and then it goes sideways.
Oh yeah.
Because people want to pretend like, "Oh, I don't think that's very healthy to say that." But like maybe it's just me, but it's just like, I blew you in a movie theater. This bitch gonna blow you in a movie theater?
Yeah, no, exactly.
Which I think people have felt and acted on, but no one was saying it.
Nobody fucking vocalized that.
There's a few people that like did that in my life, and as like an adolescent and a young woman, and like some of the people, like Roseanne Barr was like, "Hey, we're a family and we are barely getting by, and we scream at each other in the kitchen."
Yeah.
And I think everybody's just assholes unclenched, and they were like, "Oh God, we don't have to lie anymore."
Yeah.
And there was something about Alanis that did that for me, and like started me on this path of just like, be a little angry.
Well, and there was a lot of that. I'm kind of skipping ahead now, but there's a lot of that in the 90s, especially because like there was so much turmoil in the world, the Gulf War had started and ended by the time this album came out. You look at a lot of the art that was coming out at that time, movies, TV shows, songs. There was a fucking aggression to it. It was the rise of the indie movies, you know? Like you have Quentin Tarantino and Kevin Smith.
I was gonna say like
Yeah.
that was like the era of Pulp Fiction. I think
Yeah.
of that like it's like a little dirtier.
Yeah.
There's something about the 90s that was a little like, I mean, it's grunge.
Yeah.
It was a little grungy.
It was grungy. It was grungy, and it was also like, I mean, you have the LA riots because of like the Rodney King, you know, beatings and everything. Like there's such insanity where like people were seeing the world for what it was for the first time. I think in the 80s, everyone had this coked up, glazed, glamorized version. White suit, fucking Ferrari.
Saturday Night Fever.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is what it...
Yeah.
And they were still sort of like harping on the 70s. Like coming into the 80s, 80s was like... I feel like everyone was like... they put like a synth filter on everything.
Yeah.
Like you're just like, oh, it's all synth. It was like such a...
It's all bright colors and fun.
Yeah, and you're like, is it?
Yeah, the 90s comes around and it's like, no, it's actually not fun. The world sucks. It's burning, and we have to do something about it. You listen to like the dialogue in like those indie films at the time, and it is very much the same as like the lyrics in Jagged Little Pill, where it's like, hey, fuck off. Like there's things like in Clerks, the first movie, where they're talking about like the realistic problems that happened when the Death Star got blown up, and how they are just, the rebels are actually terrorists. And you're like, you know, nobody's talking about that because it's the good guys, but at the same time, the US was at that point, everyone knew that they were invading everyone. Right. So this was kind of a thing that was on everyone's mind. Everything
was the realization that your guys aren't the good guys.
Yeah.
Which is like it's like when you find out your parents aren't right all the time. You're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to believe in now?
I mean, I still believed in Santa when I found that out.
They're lying to me about this shit now,
They're lying to me about this shit?
What else is real?
I pretended to believe in Santa for a lot longer than I was like, I fucking want more gifts.
Dude, my presents still say to Brittany from Santa.
And my mom so funny.
And then I go, thank you, mom. And then she goes, Santa got it.
And then that's so funny.
We play a little game.
I do the same thing with my mom. Okay, so I wanna just finish up. You Ought to Know becomes a huge hit.
Yeah.
Instantly she starts touring. She's opening up for bands at first. She's playing shitty clubs. As their tour goes on, it ends up being a stadium tour. She auditions people, though, for this band, like that is going to be her touring band. And Taylor Hawkins of the Foo Fighters was her drummer. The Foo Fighters were also, at the time, starting up. And so they would often play the same gigs, or they would be like crossing paths, so they'd leave notes in the green room for each other.
Oh my God.
Which is so funny.
That's amazing.
And then the guitar player ended up playing for Jane's Addiction years later. The bassist was an accident. She didn't mean to call him. She meant to call a different guy.
Really?
She called him. He came in and she went, fuck, that was the wrong guy, because that guy was like a jazz bass player. And he had no idea what the fuck was happening. But if you listen to her music, it does shift based on like a lot to do with the bass in that time. And I think that it's because like you have this perfect combination of these rock kids. You have somebody who was a former childhood pop star who's got fucking anger, rightfully so.
Yeah.
And then you have this jazz musician. Like, what the fuck is this?
Dude, a jazz bassist?
Yeah.
That's like... I'm going to go back and listen with a different ear.
Yeah.
Knowing that. Because it's like, yeah, that would shift. I mean, you know what I love about the bass and anything? Is like you don't... It's not meant to be the biggest note there. Mm-hmm. You almost don't know what's there. Like, so, you know, like I used to play in like a band, like school band. You know?
Yeah.
And it's like...
What instrument did you play?
I played the saxophone.
Hey, Aaron, guess what? You fucking loser with the xylophone and the timpani. Sorry, Aaron, my co-host, played the xylophone and the timpani. And he failed a xylophone test.
Fuck.
Because he didn't know how to play the notes, and they were literally written on the fucking thing. So I just have to say, we have a better musician now as a co-host.
Oh no. But you know what, so like when I think of like the bass line and you like look, so my friend was in that, she would play the trombones and the baritones and the tubas all sat in the back kind of.
Yeah.
And I had this like secret like lust to be in the bass section because they were all kind of just like, ugh. But the thing about bass is you don't necessarily hear it, but you feel it.
Yeah.
It changes the dynamic of a song. It's like the underlying, like, consistent thing. Like, so to have a jazz musician why can't I say musician?
I don't know.
We're Britain.
Is Brittany have strokes?
Oh no, it's finally happened. Which I just like, if I had a stroke, I'd be like, that tracks.
Me too.
Given my lifestyle. But yeah, so if fucking a jazz musician controlling basically the like, jazz musicians are always little, like, they're geniuses.
They're geniuses.
They're like, so that's wild to know that. Now I want to go back and listen to, like, it kind of blows my mind knowing.
Right?
Yeah.
It fucked with me because, like, I'm always, like, interested to know what the background was of the artist before they became, like, a group or a collective, right? Like, for instance, Fleetwood Mac used to be a blues band, and they released 10 albums as a blues band. That's fucking weird, you know?
Well, there's a Canadian band, Big Sugar, used to be a 3-piece, like, kind of like a jazzy, bluesy, and they turned into this big rock band.
That's crazy.
And they were just like a 3-piece, like, you know.
Fuck, that's wild.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna get into the artist now.
Please.
Alanis. She was born June 1st, 1974 in Ottawa, Ontario. Also, Brittany's wearing an Alanis Morissette shirt.
I keep thumbs-upping and just straight down the barrel.
Which is funny because the majority of our listeners are audio only, so I'll have to add a description in post. Yeah. Brittany gives a thumbs up.
Straight down Main Street.
We appreciate you. Okay, so born in Ottawa, Ontario.
Yeah.
Both her parents were teachers. She had an older brother who is a business dude and a twin brother who is also a musician. That's gotta suck.
That your brother's a musician as well, and your twin, or what?
That your sister is that your twin sister is a musician, and you've been trying your whole life at the same time and not getting the same fucking accolades.
Yo, but you know what? I think isn't that always the way?
Yeah,
it's the person who tries and tries and tries. It's just like the universe is like, hey, this wasn't meant for you.
This was not for you.
If this path is this hard, then
you gotta pick a different path.
How about, do you like spreadsheets?
Because your older brother does. Okay, so she was a Catholic family, and from the ages of 3 to 6, her family lived in West Germany.
Ooh.
Which is pretty interesting. She said that her German experience was, because that was, back when there was East and West Germany, very, very influential on her, but she still considers Ottawa to be her always hometown.
Right.
She started playing the piano at age 6, took dance lessons at 7, at 10 composed her first song, and released a single. And at 12 was a cast member of You Can't Do That on Television, which was a Canadian sketch TV show.
Wow.
So she began her career super early. And then she signed with MCA Records Canada, and then released her first album, Alanis, only in Canada in 1991, which we've talked about before. It was a dance pop album.
Yeah.
It went platinum in Canada, though, which, as we found out, means nothing because platinum in the States means 1 million records. In Canada, it means 50,000. So
really,
yeah, it's so stupid.
It's ridiculous.
The fucking it would be diamond here would be 1 million. But its first single made the top 20, and she co-wrote all the tracks on that. And she was 15 at the time.
Oh my god!
So that's fucking crazy. Then in 1992, she releases her second album, Now This Is the Time, which was a ballad-driven record. I listened to it, and it was. Her first record was great. It was you could hear that 80s fucking, funness to it. Second one, absolute shit. Oh my God, was it bad.
Dude, there is something so cringy about a disingenuous ballad.
Mm-hmm.
You're just like, ugh.
Well, and especially coming from a 16-year-old that you're I don't know. It's weird because we see it now a lot with pop stars because there's younger and younger pop stars, it seems, nowadays.
Right.
It seems back in the day, yeah, there was pop stars that were big when they were kids. You had the Michael Jacksons and those people, but it wasn't as prevalent.
Dude, I like an age appropriate ballad. Like, actually, this is very funny. If you listen to Justin Bieber's Baby, it's the lyrics are so age appropriate.
They really are.
Like, I go like, yeah, this isn't for adults.
Yeah.
This is for also 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, he's like, I fell in love with a girl for the first time. And you're like, hell yeah, dude, you did. Of course.
And then it's like, he's heartbroken, and you're like, yeah, dude, I get you.
You're like, yeah.
You'll get over it.
Quit saying baby, because that's too little. But it's just like, yeah, with these big, like, feelings of, like, I've been left. And you're like, oh, God, is that really, like, I can't, when I was 16, I don't think I was experiencing those things.
No, I definitely wasn't. When I was 16, somebody recorded me drunkenly telling a girl that I loved her and that I wanted to start a farm with her. And then they posted it on Facebook, and that video is still out there.
I used to have posters on my walls, and then I would make out with the posters. And I don't know how long that lasts. Maybe 13, 14. Maybe by the time I was driving, I quit kissing the posters on the walls. But I don't think
Which is an appropriate time to stop kissing the posters.
I think so. Mostly for ink poisoning reasonings.
Yeah.
Reasonings.
I feel like that's you're getting like George's wife in Seinfeld. You're getting ink poisoning from the fucking posters.
If that's how I died, what a fucking tragic way to die. Did she catch something from kissing another person? No, she died of ink poisoning from kissing a poster on her wall. Yeah.
Holy fuck. Yeah, no, it's very true though. Like the needing to have like that age appropriate thing. Speaking of age appropriate thing, so she was dropped by her label in 92, because she wanted to have more control over the songwriting.
Whoa, the bunnies are going nuts.
I had a fucked up dream last night that one of my bunnies lost 2 of their legs.
Whoa.
And they just kind of fell off. And I was like, that's not right. And I was panicking, and I was like, we need to take them to the vet. And Siobhan was like, no, it's okay, we'll figure it out. And I was like, I don't think that's how this works. I'm like, there is blood all over the place. This bunny is dying. Okay, so in 1992, she was dropped by her label because she wanted to have more control over the songwriting process. And a lot of the guys at the label did not agree. And she wanted to have a more what we get in Jagged Little Pill sound. She wanted to have a sound that was more singer-songwritery in the traditional sense, instead of, writing pop fucking ballads, There was also, though, a lot of sketchy behavior that was happening in the studios at the time.
What?
And she was 15, and so, like, record producer Leslie Howe, apparently they had a relationship. He was, like, mid-20s, I think, to, like, early 30s at the time. Super fucking gross.
Yeah.
There was a lot of guys, and she said this in her documentary, that apparently there was, like, a switch that would go off, and she could see when it was going to happen. So it was kind of like waiting for the shoe to drop as to, like, when these guys would stop being collaborators and then when they would suddenly be predators. And at the time, obviously, as a 15-year-old, she didn't realize, like, how fucking gross that was. And now she's like, oh, no, all those people were pedophiles.
Yeah.
Like, and what's really fucked about it is that, like, you have a record company that, is dropping her for saying she wants to have songwriting credits, but they're working with all these guys that are literally fucking a 15-year-old in a studio.
Yeah. And that's wild to me.
Yeah.
It's not what I mean, the notion is, but it, like, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Like, that still, I'm sure it's changing. I hope it's changing. But a grown up with kids,
it's always creepy.
I don't think it's a good idea.
No.
Like, I think you should, I think her dad should have been there.
Yeah.
I think, like, somebody should be, like, supervising that process until you're an 18-year-old person.
Yeah, especially when it's like their songwriting process was going, or like their studio process, they would start at like 5 p.m. and go until like 5 a.m.
Yeah.
So there's 12 hours there where it's a young girl with this fucking creepy old man. And, like, I don't want to blame her at all for this. Like, that's not what I mean by that. I mean, like, it's fucking gross that we have to have supervision in these situations, gross.
And you know what? I was a 15-year-old girl who used to, like, work with older guys, and it was just countdown to when that was always their intention.
Mm-hmm.
It was never like, something just happened and sparks flew. it's like you look back at that now as an adult and you go, oh, they were just waiting to when you felt comfortable and they felt a little more trusted and this and this, and then they could, and then they go, oh, I thought we were having a good.
Yeah.
And you're like, but at the time,
I was a child. Thank you.
Yeah. Like
fuck.
I mean, I was into it. I was just like, I was. But so I'm not going to go back and claim anything, bad happened, but it just was like.
It's kind of like how when I tell people I lost my virginity when I was 13 to a 17-year-old girl, and they're all like, that's really creepy. I'm like, but at 13, I was kind of into it. Like,
you're like, I was actually just looking for a high five.
I was like, hey, isn't that cool, everyone? Everyone? No? Okay, cool.
But there is something when work comes into it. So she's this artist, she's this young artist, and there is this thing where you are like sort of willing to be in those situations because you're like, well, I just want to get this done.
Yeah.
And this is the most creative way to do it.
And especially when you're doing an artistic practice.
Yeah.
It's fucking really hard.
And you don't get a lot of shots. And you don't want to say no to stuff because you're like, okay, is it a little weird that it's 3:00 in the morning?
Yeah.
But also, you know what I would have been thinking in my 15-year-old brain? Cool.
Yeah.
I would have been like, this could be fucking cool.
I would have too.
Yeah,
I would have too. I absolutely fucking would have too. And that's the part that, like everybody, oh God, this is now falling. Hello, we're back. Okay, so after she gets dropped from her label, she moves to LA. She is kind of alone at the time because she doesn't know anybody there. She gets in contact with Gunn Ballard. They start working together. It's a very good relationship. He actually seems like not a creep. Yeah. Everything that I've looked at from this dude, I'm like, oh no, he seems like he was a good dude. And she was like 19 at the time, Right. It's so good that she's in a place where like she can actually work with this guy collaboratively and he's not a fucking weirdo. He also seems to speak very highly of her, which is very nice. I like that, years later he's like, she is so fucking talented. Like that just made me happy seeing that. That's so great,
yeah.
Okay, so over the course of the year, they do all these writing sessions, they're recording in one takes. She's leaving the process from these sessions, listening to the tracks in her car, not remembering what she wrote. Like, it's very like, when you go on stage and you're like, I want to work on a new bit and you don't exactly fucking have it. So you record it, then you listen to it later and you're like, fuck, I forgot about that. That's what it sounded like to me.
She wanted to go back. She was like, oh, I have this one little thing.
Yeah. And so she would listen to it later and it was great. So then Jagged Little Pill gets picked up. It's a huge success. Tours for 18 months straight, which fucking insane. And especially because like when we're on the road for 18 months, that means that we've just been a working comic for 18 months and you get like a couple of road gigs a month and you're fucking good. With her, it was like every single night she was in a different city.
That's wild.
And when she wasn't performing, she was at the Grammys accepting awards for Best Album.
And on the smallest level, can I tell you that like to me that every night in a different city, everything like I'm in a different city every maybe 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
But it's like I get to come home.
Yeah.
Also, I get to come home, reset, and then go to a different city. But like that 18 months, dude, there's no reset there. There's no like, so you just have to commit to I live on the road.
And she literally did not have a home in that 18 months.
Why would you?
Yeah, why would you?
Yeah.
And so after that tour is done though, Taylor Hawkins gets a call from the Foo Fighters because they're like, hey, we need a drummer. He accepts the offer. Obviously Alanis was kind of bummed about that because they all collectively kind of became a family on the road. But I mean, that kind of worked out, I think, for everyone. Like it was very understandable. Like he wasn't a sessional drummer, he was the touring drummer. So
she was not happy with it though.
No, not happy at all.
Like I think she was I think there was like a pretty big beef there for a while.
There was definitely like a lot of
animosity.
Yeah. But I think that it did recover because like her and the Foo Fighters were like fucking tight.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it was probably really awkward for a year or two. And then I think that it was kind of like, okay, realistically.
Just like anything. Yeah, it's like anything when you're friends with somebody, you go like, hey, that's great. You know what? Good for you, man.
Yeah.
Like, it seems like you're doing what you want.
You're doing good, but also fuck you.
But I wish you didn't leave me. Yeah.
Her 2 subsequent albums after Jagged Little Pill also reached #1 on the Billboard charts. Supposed Former Infatuation Junkies and Alanis Unplugged, which Alanis Unplugged, there was some originals, but it was mostly just acoustic fucking versions of all these songs. After the last December 1996 show for the Jagged Little Pill tour, though, she went to India for 6 weeks, accompanied by her mother and aunt and friends, and that trip was kind of what inspired her next songwriting process.
I love that, actually.
I think that it makes sense.
Yeah. Well, that's a pretty big, like, cultural shift. You'd probably see some things that were, like, you know, inspire you in ways you had never been inspired, and then she's with her, like, core group doing it just would change the way it's crazy how like things in life just shift your brain, you know, the way things run through your head.
And it also seems like it would be like because I think the first album was, you know, because obviously I've listened to her newer stuff, like her stuff that came after Jagged Little Pill, but I think like it is funny because like Jagged Little Pill seemed like I need to get this out, and then her next album is like, here's some thoughts.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's like...
it wasn't as, like...
Yeah.
Punch you in the face.
And I think that that's great. I think that more, you know, like, I think that that's okay that artists do that. What I think is funny is, like, it's like the Carlin thing. Like, Carlin had 5 stages of his career.
Yeah.
He had, like, the clean-cut corporate guy. He had the long-haired hippie guy. He had the old guy suddenly. Then he had the angry fucking political guy. Yeah. And then he had the goofy old guy thing.
Yeah, it's called growth.
Yeah, it's growth.
It's like, you know, when people are just like, oh, they, you know... oh, the last album wasn't this album, and you're like, well, of course it wasn't.
Yeah.
She's totally shifted as a person. She went from this dejected, like, she'd been dropped from her label in Canada.
Yeah.
Told she wasn't worth it by anybody.
She was sexually abused.
By everyone that could.
Yeah.
And then and so she had all these things to say that was like, I'm going to say it my way.
Yeah.
But then once you have people's ear...
then you can do what the fuck you want.
The rage starts to subside.
Yeah.
And you can go, hey, like, these are just the stories I wanted to tell.
Yeah.
And now I don't have to scream them down your fucking throat.
Which is fucking amazing. Because then it's like, I think that that's when artists get their best shit. Because she even said after that tour wrapped up that she felt at peace because she felt like she could do what she wanted to now.
Yeah.
Which is a fucking great feeling.
Which that feeling of needing to, like... to get the audience to trust you so that you can do what you want, that's a long road.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, how long from the time she started, like, she's a kid?
Yeah.
It basically took from she's a kid to her fourth album, I guess it would have been, because everyone's considering this her first album. But
yeah.
as we said, it's third album.
It's her third.
So, but by her fourth album, that's how long it took to be like, okay.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
That's fucking insane.
That's pretty cool.
I mean, in all fairness, I've recorded 2 comedy albums, and my next one is going to be my magnum opus, so...
I am going to sit down and write America's next great novel.
I am going to write the next best thing. Everyone is going to review my work in literature classes for decades.
Well, it's that feeling of, like, I'm working on a new album right now, and... for comedy, not the saxophone, but
although, you know what,
really,
can you fucking please do a saxophone album?
I should pick up the sax. I haven't played it since I was 12.
We can do a banjo and saxophone album, and then Aaron can play the xylophone because I'm sure that he can pick it up again easily.
I go. We just need a jazz bassist.
We just need a jazz bassist to round it out.
Yeah. Dope.
Sammy Benty can be on the vocals.
Oh, heck yeah.
That would actually be great. Okay, so wait, so you were talking about your album.
Yeah. And so, like, I always think you have this big, like idea that you're like, this one's me. This is how I sound. This is what I want this to sound like as a collective. And you know what? You get through it and you've said the jokes too many times and too much time has passed or whatever the case is. And you almost already feel over it by the time you've recorded it.
Yeah.
So you're like, this is not even who I am anymore. And then you've got to put this thing out there because that process, so it's like, take me 2 years.
And then 6 months later, you come up with a way better angle for that fucking joke.
Yeah. So I can imagine songwriting is similar in that you, like, it's taken so long to write these songs, produce these songs, perform these songs, get them on an album, and then the turnover for an album is not a month. It's like 6 months.
Yeah.
So then you got to go, and then you're promoting this thing that you're not even anymore. And so by the time your next thing comes out, people are always like, wow, that's so different. You're like, yeah, it's been 7 years.
Yeah.
Like, of course.
And, like, I feel like the way that I've looked at it from my own process, My first album, I was the most myself, but my writing sucked. My second album, my writing was fucking amazing, but I was not myself.
Right.
And now I'm like, now I feel like I'm at a place on stage where both of those things are coming together, and so I'm like, ooh, now it is going to be a good fucking piece of art when it comes out. That's not going to be for a while, though. Please give me a record deal. Anyways, so after that, she began acting again, and she played God in Dogma.
Of course.
Which is fucking amazing, because we were talking about Carlin earlier. He plays a Catholic priest in that movie. We got young Ben Affleck. We got young Matt Damon.
So many people are in
there. It's so incredible. The cast on that, Chris Rock, Jason Lee. Like, what the fuck is happening? Penelope Cruz. Like,
dude,
what?
There's something about Kevin Smith's brain that is like, you couldn't recreate it if you tried. Like, there's nothing, like, he makes something and you, every choice he's made, you go, yeah, of course.
But you know what I
never would have thought that.
Amazing about that movie is that, like, Alanis doesn't speak in that role as God, but she conveys absolutely everything through her eyes.
Yeah.
And you see it and you're just like, that's a fucking good actor. Like, that right there, what you're doing is amazing, because you're able to control the scene even just with that. She also performed at Woodstock 99, which was a fucking incredible performance. I watched it. It's so, you can tell that she's having this cathartic fucking, like, joy on stage. She's, like, really going crazy with the harmonica. It's just, like, another, like, next level fucking performance. And that was before Woodstock 99 got all bad.
Yeah.
So, you know, she's performing for 350,000 people.
Oh my God.
And, like, I can't imagine what that feels like, because we've both done big stages. There's big stages, and then there's that.
It's, well, you kind of have to be just delivering a performance, I would think. Like, the energy from the audience. I've been in an audience, like, maybe not that. I've been, like, at Coachella, though. I used to go to Coachella all the time. And there's this feeling of energy that is palpable. So I can't even begin to imagine what that feels like on stage.
Yeah.
I know from a comedy perspective, I've been in, like, you know, like, in bigger theaters where you look out and you're like, I just have to do what I'm going to do, because there's not pockets of people like it. You have to perform as a whole.
And it literally doesn't fucking matter. Like, you have to kind of do it like a monologue. You
like,
have to
were going to do it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they are responding, they are laughing, whatever. But, like, in 300,000 people.
300,000 people is another level where I'm just like,
you have
that's
to be
terrifying.
So sure of yourself and so sure of your ability. Like, going out there and you're like, just to recognize, like, there are 300,000 people watching this.
And that's insane.
That's a crazy, I cannot fathom.
So I'm gonna quickly get through this, because we gotta
go. We gotta
wrap it up.
We gotta go.
So we got track lists and notable singles. Okay, so All I Really Want was number 14. Alanis compared herself to Estella from the Charles Dickinson novels Great Expectation, while having a confrontation with her partner about the uncomfortable relationship. You Oughta Know, number 1. We've talked about it a lot.
Yep.
Songs also not about Dave Coulier, she has said. But Dave Coulier has said that it's about him. But I also don't think that I think that it is about Dave Coulier in some way, but I don't think that all of it is. You know, like, I think that she took all of these feelings from all of these guys that dicked her over. Matt LeBlanc, Dave Coulier, fucking Leslie Howe, all these people, and she put them all into one feeling, because it doesn't need to be specific. It's specific experiences that I think make up a whole as to, like, how she feels.
She is quoted like on I think it was Andy Cohen asked her pretty recently like who it was, and she was like, it's not Dave. She's like, it's all these people. Yeah. And then they were like, well, why, if you are proud of being an asshole, like, why would you would
you out yourself?
Because it's him that's being like, that song's about me. Yeah. And you're like, get a life, dude.
Yeah. And like, honestly,
cut it out.
Yeah, cut it out. He has said, though, that him and her are friends still to this day. Yeah. She actually, when his sister was dying of MS, she flew to Wisconsin and played a private concert for her in her
she also has MS
hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really beautiful, like, that they have been friends and stuff, and like And he even said recently on an interview with Jim and Sam, he was like, they brought up the song, and then he was like, oh, you do the popcorn trick in a movie theater one time, and then he's like, no, but like, I don't know, like, you know, we've talked about it, and I don't think that the song is about me, like, you know,
okay.
It's kind of like I think at the time thought it was about him, and fair enough, because like he probably heard one thing in that made him go, fuck, that was about me.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to reception. This album, fucking incredible reception. Critically, not as successful, though. It was commercially successful. Bye. That was weird.
Oh, yeah, they can't see behind the camera.
They can't see behind the camera.
We just waved bye to Siobhan, so it looked like we just stopped saying something. We're like, bye, have a great day.
That's the end of the episode. That's it. We cut off here. We don't even review it. No, but commercially huge success. 33 million copies sold.
Wow.
16 times platinum. Second highest selling album by a female artist. It won the Grammy for Album of the Year in 96. And it won a total of 5 Grammys because it won for like music video for Ironic. A few other things. It's on the Rolling Stones list of the top 500 albums of all time.
Hell yeah.
And it keeps charting on that list. Like every time they make it, it has not fallen off of that list. Critically, though, there's a lot of people who, one, were trying to say that the record companies were trying to shill out this, let's make a female grunge artist sort of thing. And they weren't, they also were saying that she didn't write these songs herself and like all of these things.
Of course they're like, they're like, hey, how is this? Basically, all I'm hearing is how is this good?
Yeah. How is this woman capable of doing this?
We're just going to punch holes in this.
Yeah. And a lot of the reviews at the time that were coming from like critics, and I say that in quotes because critics always suck when it comes to fucking reviewing things, but they were like, they all said like it was too angry. They said what most of the record labels were saying. The difference is you look at the reception of who was at her concerts, and it was literally fucking everyone. She crossed age demographics, she crossed gender demographics, she crossed race demographics. Everyone fucking related to her music.
Dude, it's crazy. Like, and this is like a weird gender thing to me, but I'm like, for some reason, because I loved her so much, and it seems like this big female perspective and stuff. For a while, I was like shocked to hear that like men felt the same way about this album.
Yeah,
like they were like, "Fuck, this is so good. This is so like this speaks to me. This is like." And
the fact that dudes can go through a breakup and then put on "You Oughta Know" and feel the fucking same.
The same
way. That's literally what I did a couple of years ago. This is not. I'm not going to name names, so it's fine. But I was seeing this girl. She broke up with me twice. Like we got back together once. She broke up with me twice for the same dude. And
hurts feelings.
Yeah. Oh my God. Did I ever fucking blare this song? And then she had the audacity to show up 2 weeks later with a different dude on a date and sat front row in the fucking opening night of a play that I was in.
What?
And I had told her to not do that. I was like, can you just like not see me for a while?
Yeah.
And so what I think is funny about it though is that I'm like, I then that song as an adult, I was like, yes. Fuck you. And I like was listening to it on the bus and I was like, yeah, you fucking ought to know, you bitch. I know that you wouldn't do what he did, because that was somebody who I had a what we called a fuck it list.
Yeah.
So we made a list of places that we were gonna fuck in public, basically.
Right.
And so I'm like, yeah, is that person gonna fucking go down on you on a C train? No, exactly. Go fuck yourself.
Just so angry. Well, there's like, I mean, there's that feeling of like, yeah, you're relating to it. Like the breakup thing is so funny. I know with Jan Arden too, that was a similar story. Everyone was like, this is too sad.
Yeah.
Like no one wants to listen to this. It's too sad. And then
I would love to have Jan Arden on the pod because I'm actually friends with her.
She's very, I don't know her, but I love her a lot.
She's so fucking cool. I helped her download an app to her phone.
Very cool.
The first time that I met her.
I'm obsessed. But apparently like somebody, whoever the guy was that good story if I don't know any of the details.
You know this guy, he did this thing.
He was a producer or something. He listened to the album, and he was like, oh, that's just too sad. And then he like left it in his CD player, and then he went on a vacation or something, and his girlfriend broke up with him and left him. And he was like, oh my God. And he got back into his car like when he got back, and put it in, and he was like, oh my God.
And I'm guessing that was Insensitive.
Yeah.
Which is like, that is a fucking heart crushing song.
Well, so like it's all about hearing it with the right ears. Like,
yeah.
And everybody assumes like, oh, okay, like no one's going to want to listen to this like angry perspective. And it's like, yeah, I do.
God damn it.
Oh God, it's happening again.
No, that makes sense.
Mary Jane, though, I saw her, so I just went to the concert, and I watched her perform live that song, and that was, like, I lost it. I started crying. Because I don't think you, like, know how beautiful her voice really is, because I don't think she gets that credit.
Yeah.
Like, she sounds like nobody else. She has these insane vocal chops.
Oh, my God.
So to hear it live and just fill an arena and take you back to that place of being that age and hearing it that way, and like in concert she dressed the same, like she must have put hair extensions in.
Oh, that's so cool.
She had a big baggy neon t-shirt.
Oh, I love that.
So like she played when she sang Mary Jane, it was like, I don't know what it was, but I just like heard the beauty in her voice, and I was like, oh my God, so overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I totally could understand, like, live. I wouldn't give a fuck, because I watch so many bands live where I'm like, I'll watch, like, songs that I can't stand, I love when I see them live. Excuse me. Okay, so we're going to wrap this up. We're going to get into the review of the album. So, we're going to review on technical element, musical element, lyrics, reception, album art, and does it hold up. So we review out of 6.
Okay.
Each of these we review out of 10, and then we average it out at the end.
Sure.
So, technical element. I would give this a 9 out of 10. I think technically it's pretty flawless. There's a few songs where, and this is partially because she was a one-take wonder with it.
Right.
Where the mix isn't as solid as it could be, but it's not noticeable, I don't think. To most people, that wouldn't be the game changer.
Okay. I'll give it an 8, just because, I mean, like, I don't know if I'd give Pet Sounds a 10. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, just on that scale.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. That totally makes sense. Okay. So then, musical element, I'm gonna give it an 8. I feel like it's really strong. I feel like there's a lot in this album that takes from different genres, and it incorporates them very well, and it was very ahead of its time specifically for that reason. So for that, I would give it an 8 out of 10, but I will say the only reason I'm not giving it a higher number is just because I feel like it's one of those things where a part of the time, at the time it was new, but now it's been done a lot, that right. Mixing of those genres. So that's why I would say 8 out of 10.
I'll for the same reasons, 8 out of 10.
Awesome.
Okay.
Lyrics, I would give it 10 out of 10.
Yeah, here's the thing. Yeah. It's unmatched. Like, lyrically?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big statement to make.
No, but it is. Absolutely, it's fucking unmatched.
There's nothing you can even compare to it.
No.
I mean, the only thing I can think closely, like, I mean, Tragically Hip, like, that sort of, it's just its own thing, and it's perfect.
And we talked about how it's like, how it is that honest approach. It's that gut-punching feel, right? Okay, reception, I would have to give it a 7 out of 10, and the only reason is because critically it was not as well received, and that sucks because it is fucking amazing.
I'm going to go 8 only because that pisses me off.
That's fair.
Because of course it wouldn't be,
yeah.
You know?
And that's totally fair. That's a really good reason, actually.
Spite.
Album art, I would say, you know what? It's kind of that generic 90s fucking album art, and that's the only problem that I have with it. It is good, but I would say 7.5 out of 10.
Okay. Album art, I'm going to go 8 because I agree with that it's just a watercolor splash of whatever, but it's iconic.
That's fair,
dude. You see that you see this much, you see a square of like what that, and you know exactly what it is.
That's also
like I might
true.
even go 9, dude, because like it's like okay, is it like some crazy thing? No. but it just is representative. You look at it, you go, that's that album.
And also, I guess that is fair because you know what? It would. Okay, I'll change my answer and I'll go an 8 too.
Okay.
Because I think that that's fair because this was like one of the first ones to do it. You know, like there was like a few country albums at the time that were doing like that same sort of thing. But
everybody else's is just their face, dude.
Yeah.
There's an Eagles album that's just like the skull of an eagle.
Yeah.
And it's like, you see that? Is it like the coolest like thing you've ever seen? No. But you look at it and you go, that's that album.
That's also very fair. Now, does it hold up? I would say yes.
I'd say yes, yeah.
All right, so Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill, 8.25 out of 10.
How did you do that?
Dude, I added up so fucking quickly.
Really?
I keep adding, like, as we were going, I was averaging it out, and then I got it, and I was like, yeah, okay, we got this.
Are you a genius?
Yeah, I'm actually Rain Man. I remember I said Cloaca.
Yeah. I remember.
All right, so, Brittany, where can we find you on social media? What gigs do you have coming up?
Oh, boy.
This is coming out next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. All right. Well, I will be social media. You can find me at Brittany the Comedian on Instagram.
Yeet.
Brittany Lyseng on Twitter, which I've just revived my Twitter. And oh boy, I have 54 followers, and I'm stoked. So really, really get on that page. TikTok at just Brittany Lyseng. And gigs, you can see me. Well, you can see me and Spencer in Lethbridge in January, but before that, I will be in Victoria in November. I'll be in Toronto in a week. I'll be in Saskatoon. So maybe just hit up my Insta.
Yeah.
And I'll post a thing.
You're touring all over the country.
I'm around.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.
Cool beans.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Misfits on Vinyl, hosted by Spencer Streichert and me, Aaron Walsh, and of course produced by Sam the Tech Man, Sam Lindsay. If you like us, please rate us, subscribe to us, share us. Our socials are Misfits on Vinyl Podcast on Instagram and TikTok. If you want to send us an email with any suggestions or criticisms, we love that shit, so send it away. It's misfitsonvinyl@gmail.com. We love you guys. Thank you.